Hello and welcome to iNTAKE Insights. My name is Daniel Nicoară. I'm a promoter, DJ and music producer, and in this series I share news, ideas and personal observation from the world of electronic music. Last Saturday I visited CARGO Summerbar in Oostende for their Techno Vibes event. The original plan was to go to the beach first and arrive at CARGO somewhere around 5 or 6, but the new intro for the iNTAKE radio show took me much longer than expected, so the beach never happened. We went straight to CARGO instead and arrived at around 6:30. By then, the music was already well underway. CARGO has a large cover terrace with the DJ booth and dance floor at the center of it. Hello! We are at CARGO Summerbar here in Oostende with Pompey and Liniana. Where is Liniana? There! Whoa. We're having a lot of fun. Springkasteel, waar?
Daar!
Let's go, show me!
Daar is Springkasteel daar.
Let's go to the Springkasteel. The terrace extends into a children's area where there were 3 inflatable castles and a small fountain. That combination worked really well. It was clearly a music-focused event with people dancing throughout the afternoon and evening, but Leticia and I could still attend together with the children. They had their own space to play while we could enjoy the music and the party atmosphere. During the first part of the evening, I started talking with Michael about BAM and about how the electronic music scene in Oostende has evolved, especially the techno scene. One of the main issues he highlighted was the difficulty of finding the right venue. A good location is not only important for the atmosphere, it can also determine whether an event is practical, attractive to the audience, and financially realistic. We also spoke about the rising fee being asked by DJs today and how difficult it has become to build a lineup with recognizable names without taking an enormous financial risk. From my own perspective, that is one of the biggest challenges. You want a lineup strong enough to attract people, but you also do not want to gamble your life savings every time you organize an event. Our conversation touched on the balance between ambition and the sustainability, how to create something artistically worthwhile while still keeping the organization financially responsible. After a while, DJ Moira joined us and brought her own perspective into the conversation. Shortly after 10, I took Leticia and the children home. From around 10:30, the event continued inside. After returning to CARGO, I went inside and danced for a while. Later, I stepped outside for a break and met Jeroen, better known to many people in the scene as Morwak. When I introduced myself and told him about iNTAKE, we quickly ended up in a much longer conversation about electronic music and event organization. He told me that he had been a concierge at Cirque Magique, a distinctive role within the festival and part of its wider creative world. He also spoke openly about the financial reality of electronic music and stressed that, despite everything people see from the outside, there is often very little money being made behind the scenes. That conversation connected naturally with another one I had later that night when I met Glenn as he was preparing to leave. Glenn understands more of the financial and practical side of the organization, the part of an event that the audience rarely sees. He explains that he prefers to prepare everything well in advance so that when the day itself arrives, there is less pressure and fewer surprises. Glenn is also the one who looks for sponsors and helps make sure there is enough financial support for the event to remain sustainable. My final conversation of the night came at around 2:30 when I met Bjorn outside as I was preparing to leave. It gave me one last perspective on the organization behind the event. We spoke about how the evening had gone and about the realities of organizing an event like this. Bjorn told me that, based on his impression at that moment, they had probably managed to break even. And honestly, in the current event landscape, simply breaking even can already feel like a success. For me, CARGO became more than just another party visit. Across the evening and the night, I experienced several sides of the same event, attending with my family, meeting DJs and organizers, spending time on the dance floor, and hearing about the practical and financial reality behind the scenes. But the evening at Cargo also left me thinking about something else. Who is actually attending these events today? At Cargo, just as at Boho Village Experience, Club Vaag, and even at some of my own events, I noticed that much of the crowd seems to be in their 30s or older. Of course, this is only my personal observation from a limited number of events and not a scientific measurement. Still, it raises an interesting question. Is the younger generation partying less, or are they simply partying differently? When I previously worked on production for techno events, that's techno with a K, the audience often appeared noticeably younger, with many people in their early 20s. At the peak time techno, techno trance and more established club events I have recently attended or organized, the average age seemed closer to 30 or 35. That does not necessarily mean that younger people have lost interest in electronic music. It may mean that they are choosing different genres, different locations, and different type of experiences. Recent Belgian research appears to support that more nuanced explanation. The SHIFT study, conducted by researchers connected to Hoogent and the University of Antwerp, suggests that students are not simply abandoning nightlife. Instead, going out has become a more deliberate and selective decision, shaped by factors such as affordability, safety, identity, and personal well-being. Traditional nightlife also faces pressure from rising costs, commercializations, and the disappearance of informal, easily accessible spaces. So perhaps younger people are still socializing and still looking for music, but they are not necessarily doing it in the same venues, with the same frequency, or in the same way as previous generations. Price could be one of the main driving factors. Attending an event is no longer only about purchasing an entrance ticket. There may also be transport, parking, accommodation, drinks, food, and sometimes clothing or other expenses connected to the occasion. A 2025 iVox survey conducted for Bancontact Payconic found that Belgian festival goers expected to spend an average of €426 across approximately 3 festival days during the summer. Interestingly, people between 35 and 54 expected to spend the most, with an average budget of €603 compared with €367 among those under 34. A separate 2026 survey by Testankop found that Belgians who attended a festival during the previous year had spent an average of €212 per festival visit. Around €100 went towards the ticket, €80 was spent at the event, and approximately €34 covered transport and accommodation. Nearly 1 in 4 visitors spent between €250 and €500, while 6% spent more than €500. This study measures spending in different ways, so the figures cannot be compared directly. However, they both show that attending festival has become a significant financial commitment. And at the highest end of the market, the numbers can become extraordinary.
Mexico!
Where are you from?
Colombia.
United States?
I'm from Angola. How much did you spend already on the festival?
2,000.
3,000 euros.
2,000 euros.
3,000 euros.
4,000, 5,000 euro. I've saved up for it and I'm glad to be here.
10,000 euros.
That's a lot of money.
Expensive. But it's fantastic. And the tickets, it's about 300, 400.
Like the hotel and shuttle package, 1,800. For the plane ticket, I've paid 2,200.
I have the ticket, the visa as well.
Food for every day has been about 150 euros.
You also bought this?
Yes.
And that was how much money?
Oh, this is probably the cheapest thing. 20 euro off of Amazon.
Is Tomorrowland only for the rich people?
It's not easy to normal people to save 2,000 euros and spend it in a whole week.
We're not rich. We saved up for it, like I said. I worked 2 jobs to get here.
No, for everybody. It's about your saving
If you like, you can come.
You can save money during the year, but it's good. I think that is a dream that you have to meet.
And is it worth all that money?
Absolutely. Last year we are sad because of the main stage, and this year we said, let's do it. Don't look back towards any penny.
It's like an experience. It's just one weekend, but the whole weekend is crazy good.
I'm a doctor in Brazil, so here's the freedom.
We dream about this like we were 17. It was a dream come true.
Electronic music is the best music in the world, so you have to meet here. You don't need to be wasted, you don't need to be drugged, you just need to live the experience.
We have only one life, we have to enjoy it.
In a video recorded at Tomorrowland, international visitors describe spending between 3,000 and 5,000 euros on the complete festival experience. Some of them say that save money throughout the entire year just to attend. Of course, those interviews do not represent every Tomorrowland visitor, but they show how a major international festival can become something closer to a luxury holiday or a once-a-year destination experience for part of its audience. And this kind of spending is not limited to multi-day festivals. When I checked the official Pasha listing for Musicon event featuring Marco Carola, Posa and Frankie Rizzardo, general admission has already reached 350 euros in its 16th release, with only 31 tickets remaining at that price level. Balcony VIP, including 5 premium drinks, was priced at 450 euros, while Backstage Dance VIP, including 10 premium drinks, had reached 850 euros. Wow! These were not prices for an entire festival weekend, including accommodation and transport. They were ticket prices for a single night at Pasha Ibiza. And despite those prices, demand was clearly still there. The event sold out, and that tells us something important about the current market. At the highest end, major artists, established venues and powerful event brands can continue raising prices because part of the audience is still prepared to pay for the experience. But a local club or independent promoter cannot necessarily follow the same model. Raising ticket prices too far may simply push away the community they depend on. And that creates another question. Are there simply too many major events competing for the same people, the same weekends, and the same limited entertainment budgets? Belgium has an enormous festival culture, with multiple large events sometimes taking place during the same weekend. At the same time, artist fees, production expenses, and organizational costs continue to rise. This has led to growing discussions about whether the current number of festivals and their economic models are sustainable. The public has a limited amount of money, time, and energy. When somebody spends several hundred or even several thousand euros on one major experience, what remains for the smaller clubs, local promoters, and independent events? And when younger visitors have to choose more carefully, are they more likely to save for one spectacular festival rather to attend several smaller events throughout the year? This may be part of the pressure that people I met at CARGO were describing. Increasingly high artist fees, difficulty finding suitable venues, the need for sponsorship, and the reality that even a successful-looking event may only just break even. So perhaps the question is not simply whether young people are partying less. Perhaps nightlife itself is becoming more divided between younger underground communities, older and more financially established club audiences, intimate local gatherings, and increasingly expensive destination festivals. The desire to dance is still there. But where people dance, how often they go out, and how much they are willing or able to spend may be changing. At the same time, the wider industry figures reveal an interesting contradiction. Some of the destinations and even brands that are doing well are generating more revenue even while organizing fewer events. Sometimes less is more. According to a recent IMS business report, Ibiza's club ticketing revenue continued to grow despite a reduction in the number of events. Higher ticket prices and increasing demand for premium, high-value experiences helped compensate for the lower event volume. In other words, successful events are often making more money from each visitor rather than simply organizing more parties. But that does not necessarily mean the whole scene is becoming healthier. The biggest festivals, established clubs and international brands are in a much stronger position to raise prices, sell VIP experiences and attract visitors who are prepared to spend hundreds of euros or even thousands. Smaller clubs, local promoters and independent events do not always have that possibility. Their audience may be more price sensitive, while their artist fees, venue costs, production expenses and organizational risks continue to rise. So the electronic music industry can appear to be growing in revenue, while underneath the headline figures, the audience becomes more concentrated around a smaller number of major experiences. Some events may earn more while selling fewer tickets. Meanwhile, many smaller organizers, like myself, are still fighting simply to cover their costs and reach the break-even point. And with ticket prices, artist fees, and production costs continue to rise, do you think the current event model is still sustainable? Let me know what you are seeing in your own city, your own scene, and at the events you attend. After looking at changing audiences and the growing influence of major festivals, I want to bring the discussion back to something more local: the importance of clubs and smaller venues. For me, this is not only a theoretical subject. In Bruges, there was a small cafe called Rumors run by Cornell. Its capacity was probably no more than around 50 people, but it had something that cannot easily be measured in square meters or ticket sales: a real community. Rumors was not exclusively an electronic music venue. It also hosted R&B nights and live musicians, giving different styles and local artists a place to connect with the audience. Electronic music, however, was a major part of its identity, perhaps even the main part. People returned regularly, recognized one another, and developed a connection with the venue. It became a familiar meeting place for part of the local scene. That experience stayed with me. Later, I organized an event together with Cornel at Barlow. More recently, I submitted an application for the Factor Club project. Our application was unsuccessful, but the idea behind it reflected what I believe a local club can and should be. We wanted to create an accessible meeting place, especially for students and younger people. Somewhere they could enjoy quality electronic music, affordable drinks, and a good night out without needing the budget of a major festival. During the day, the venue was meant to work together with local organizations such as Decade, Oranje and Overkoop, building a meaningful relationship with the surrounding community. Part of that vision was to involve and guide young people who might not have many opportunities, giving them a chance to discover the world behind events, not only as visitors, but through music, sound, lighting, visuals, promotion, production and organization. The venue could therefore function as a creative and social space during the day before transforming into a club at night. At the same time, affordability did not mean lowering the quality. The plan included a professional Pioneer sound system, lighting, lasers and visual production, creating a strong club experience inside a more intimate and accessible environment. The objective was not simple to fill a room with equipment. It was to combine quality production with fair prices, a recognizable identity and a genuine sense of community. Because that is where local clubs can offer something different from festivals. A festival can create an extraordinary experience for one weekend. A club can become part of people's lives. It can offer new DJs and musicians their first real opportunities, allow promoters to take creative risks, provide experience for technicians and organizers, and give an audience somewhere to return to regularly. And perhaps most importantly, it can create a space where people feel that they belong. When a small venue like Rumors closes, is therefore not only another business that disappears. A local meeting place disappears with it. The people may continue going out, but the community becomes scattered, and rebuilding that connection somewhere else is not always easy. That is why I continue to believe that local clubs matter, even when building a sustainable model around them is becoming increasingly difficult. One club that has managed to maintain that continuity is Club Vaag in Antwerp. Club Vaag offers something very different from the scale of a major festival. It is more intimate, more direct, and the distance between the DJ and the crowd is much smaller. That kind of environment still matters. At a festival, the production can be spectacular, but inside the club, you can experience the music in a different way. You can follow how a set develops, how the crowd reacts, and how the atmosphere changes throughout the night. Club Vaag also shows how much work is required to keep a club active on a regular basis. The audience arrives when everything is ready. The sound is playing, the lights are working, the bar is open, and the room has been prepared. But behind every night is a team of people working before, during, and after the event. And right now, Club Vaag is hiring people for different parts of its organization, including the bar, lighting, technical production, and other supporting roles. That is worth mentioning because many people who want to enter the electronic music world immediately think about becoming a DJ. But a scene needs much more than DJs. It needs technicians, bar staff, light operators, runners, promoters, organizers, designers, and many other people who help turn an empty room into a functioning event. Sometimes the first steps into the music industry is not behind the decks. It may begin by helping with production, working behind the scenes, or learning how a club operates from the inside. That connects directly with the idea behind our Factor Club proposal. A local club can be more than a commercial nightlife business. It can become a place where people learn practical skills, discover talents, and find a way into music, production, or event organization. It can also give upcoming DJs and artists opportunities before they are able to attract large crowds. This matters because the electronic music industry cannot depend only on established names. Every major artist once needed a smaller room, an early booking, and an organizer willing to take a chance. Clubs can provide those first opportunities. They can also allow artists to experiment, play longer sets, and develop a closer relationship with the audience. But none of this means that running a club is easy. A venue has to deal with rent, staff, security, artists, sound, lighting, maintenance, promotion, and many other costs before it can even begin to think about profit. Unlike a major festival, a local club cannot depend on visitors treating every night as a once-a-year luxury experience. It needs people to return regularly. This is why the shift towards fewer but more expensive festival experiences can become a serious problem for local nightlife. When people spend much of their annual budget on one or two major events, the local club still has to open the following weekend. It still has staff to pay, artists to book, and equipment to maintain. And it still needs enough people on the dance floor to make the night sustainable. This is why I believe the survival of clubs such as Club Vaag should matter to the wider electronic music community. Festivals can show how large and impressive the culture has become, but clubs preserve the connection between one weekend and the next. They provide continuity, opportunities, practical experience, and a permanent meeting place for people who share the same passion. Festivals can create unforgettable moments, but local clubs are where scenes are built, maintained, and passed from one generation to another. After talking about why local clubs still matter, I also want to look at how organizers are experimenting with completely different spaces and event concepts. One event that immediately caught my attention is the IM production edition of 50 HERTZ Club Train during Amsterdam Dance Event. The train leaves early on Sunday morning, the 25th of October at 5:30. In reality, that means the final stretch of Saturday night when much of Amsterdam will still be fully inside the ADE atmosphere. The concept is already unusual. Several train carriages transformed into separate music spaces traveling through Amsterdam while different artists perform at the same time. But what really convinced me was the lineup. It includes ADHS, Joris Torrenhout, Joy Hauser, Nella Jan, Juliet Fox, Kaast, Albin Breslan and several other artists across the different carriages. For me, ADHS, Joris Torrenhout, Joy Hauser and Nella Jan are among the absolute priorities. I just hope that they are not playing at the same time, because choosing between them would be painful. This is exactly the kind of peak time techno and techno trance program that fits my musical taste. And honestly, I already know where I want to be during the final hours of ADE. On that train, moving between different carriages and dancing my brain out. But beyond my personal excitement, I also think the club train represents something interesting for the future of nightlife. It proves that an event does not necessarily need to become larger to become more memorable. Mega festivals compete through enormous stages, spectacular visuals, and international headliners. Local clubs compete through intimacy, continuity, and community. A concept like the club train offers something else: originality. It takes the essential elements of club culture, the artists, the sound, the lights and the crowd, and places them inside an environment that completely changes the experience. The different carriages can each develop their own atmosphere. Passengers can move through the train, discover new artists, and experience several small club environments during the same journey. Of course, the concept also creates some practical questions. How do you manage the movement of people between the carriages? How do the sound system work without interfering with one another? And how do you create a comfortable and safe event inside the moving train? Those are exactly the details that make me curious to experience it personally. In an event market where audiences are constantly surrounded by new lineups and advertisement, originality may become increasingly important. A smaller event cannot always compete with the budget or scale of Tomorrowland, but it can create an experience that people cannot find anywhere else. And perhaps that is one possible direction for the future of electronic music. Not only bigger stages, not only more expensive headliners, but stronger concepts, distinctive environments, and new ways of bringing people together around the music. Major festivals can compete through the scale. Local clubs can compete through community. And concepts such as the club train can compete through imagination. For me, this train is not simply another event on the ADE program. It's a priority. And with that, we reached the end of this episode of iNTAKE Insights. From an evening at Cargo to the economics of major festivals, the importance of local clubs and a nightclub movings across the Dutch railways, one thing remains clear. Electronic music culture is still alive, but the places, prices, and ways in which people experience it are changing. So now I want to hear from you. Have you noticed that the audience at the certain techno events is getting older? Are younger people partying less? Or are they simply choosing different genres, different venues, and fewer, bigger experiences? And do you believe local clubs can remain sustainable beside today's mega festivals? Let me know what you are seeing in your city, your scene, at the events you attend. Thank you for watching. Support your local scene. My name is Daniel Nicoară, and we meet again next Saturday with iNTAKE Radio Show, and in 2 weeks with the next episode of iNTAKE Insights. See ya!